No, so great to have you here. You know, we're doing a lot of interview format stuff because honestly, I went to GrowthCon and they did a lot of it, and I enjoyed it because I personally can pay attention better to dialogue.
Yeah.
We strung a lot here together at the end, and we got one more. So I had to put Brad Hannon before the last one because Brad Hannon can energize us.
Well, and I also appreciate that because a lot of people come back into the room to see Dante, so they just stumbled in. Now I'm here, and they're going to get to see Dante. So, but yeah, and you asked me whether I wanted to do the interview or speak, and naturally I'm used to speaking, but this conference, really I'm here for you. Like this is a, so I obviously volunteered, like, hey, let's do the interview because I just want to be able to, just give you the thanks and the credit that too, but just give you the thanks and the credit that you deserve for doing this and for inspiring, me and so many others. So, I do appreciate you a lot.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you being here. And I know earlier, I think yesterday, we were talking ACA, and I hope you weren't in the room. We were talking so good about ACA.
I was in the room, and I couldn't wait to get up here.
You were over there texting me vomit emojis or something. So no, Brad goes after what I don't know, I'll probably butcher this. You guys call them, or the niche that you kind of got into, and this would have been earlier in the ACA
that other
evolution when it sucked. When ACA was really bad. There's still some nuances for sure.
Right.
But you went after the healthy and the wealthy.
The healthy and the wealthy.
That's what Brad told me. He said, we go after the healthy and the wealthy under 65. That's been the focus. And even though we're a Medicare conference, I can't tell you guys how many sales I got in Medicare by being willing to help an under 65. It's a lot more, even though it's growing, that agent base is growing, it's still a bigger vacuum in the under 65 space for those people. And there's a lot of people, 50 to 64. My CRM is full of these every day, these
now
6 month out notifications.
Used to be, I was telling somebody the story at lunch that Justin used to run under 65 and then he put it in his iPhone.
I did, yeah. So I've been an iPhone since iPhone 4. I've been an Apple guy. Once I got that, I was like, oh my God, I can never go back to anything else. So I still use the iCal. My team wants me to. They're like, we got to get Trello, and we got to get Slack. And we got to get all these communication channels, and I'm like, that's too much. Text message me if it's important. Email me, and then I'll put it on iCal. So people think
as soon as you text me, I just click the link, and it just goes.
People think I'm like a tech guy, but I appreciate it. I just don't want to have to communicate. I want them to communicate in it. I still really will use the iCal. So back in the day when I'd write these under 65 people, I'd look where their birthday was, go 6 months out, and I have notifications still popping up. I probably got them out to like 2025 now of people that I wrote health insurance that are T65. And when they pop up, I pull it up and I send it to one of my agents, and I'm like, go check this one out, see if you can find them.
Who knew?
Write them up.
Who knew?
It's a huge, if nothing else, lead in. But really, just like Medicare, financial advisors start doing Medicare as a lead source, and then they're like, wait, the compounding residual Medicare is good.
Yeah.
Same thing with under 65. I'm saying it's a lead source, but then you start doing it, and I've told some people, I'm like, I almost feel guilty about how much they pay me on some of this.
And you know this because you did it, but I'm having the first conversation with them about Medicare. I'm having the conversations, when they're 61, 62, and they're because I mention it. I say, well, for now, your insurance is going to suck, right? Just kind of is. Whether it's ACA, whether it's on the private side. I'm known for insurance sucks. I just make it suck less. And, I really do believe that Medicare, obviously it's kind of the coverage that not only they need, but they want at that level. There's not a whole lot out of pocket, right? In the under 65 world, it is not necessarily that way. And so I'm having that conversation at 62, 63 saying, hey, listen, I know the premium's high or maybe it's low because they qualify for a subsidy or whatever. And I know the doctor's office or the network is limited, or I know, whatever. But give us 3 years, we'll get you on Medicare. Yeah. And by the way, we do that too. Yeah. So a lot of people don't know that we do Medicare.
It's actually part of that sales, because when I was doing a lot of the under 65 talks, and especially coming from the Medicare side, I was like, look, I used to go break it down. I'd say you got short-term medical, you got ACA, you got healthcare sharing ministries. You got people packaging an indemnity plan as a major medical. These are the things that exist. Everything that you're having marketed to you, all falls into these categories.
One of the products.
And all of them, to be honest, suck, and all of them have they have good, things about them, and then all of them can suck. Now, obviously, if somebody's like super heavy, reduced shared costs,
right,
subsidized ACA, that can get pretty good, but that's not the healthy and wealthy.
Right,
You're going
right.
after.
It's a different market.
But I would say in the sales pitch too, I'd say, hey, this is to get you through. It's to protect you for some crazy stuff as well as we possibly can.
Yep.
Then we're going to get you on a Medicare supplement plan G, and it's on to greener pastures.
Yep, I'll tell them that. Hey, listen, once we get you there, you're good. And by the way, we do it, and so it's very rare that they probably even have another conversation with anybody else. It's also very rare that in that same person, right, has a spouse that might already be on Medicare. So I've had it happen that way as well, where we help somebody that's under 65 with. So you could lose clients to not not serving that market because hey, my husband's on Medicare. Oh, by the way, what does he have? We do that too. I'll help you with yours, but when we're done, I'm happy to look at your husband's Medicare, see what we can do. And then I look at their Medicare and I call Justin. I say, hey, they got this plan N. What is this? Can I beat it? How do I sell it?
So when when I started running Facebook ads back when they were like, it was on fire in the consumer world, 2015.
I keep saying that. Everyone in here is like, gosh, dang it, I wish I would run it 5 years ago.
Look, every year
still work.
There are multiple wins, and you can find them strong wins, and everything works a little, nothing works a lot. Who's heard me say that before? Okay, it's true. Everything works a little, nothing works a lot, except occasionally something works a lot, but it won't for long, so you better exploit it while you can.
Right.
Because somebody, like this guy or my next guest is going to figure that out, and they're going to scale it to the point that it starts to, empty that well. That's just the way it is. But when I was running those early Facebook ads, I loved doing under 65 health. Just like I would the dental.
They paid for the ad.
And then a lot of, especially, I would target female 60 to 64 health insurance. And then like almost every one of them was married to a dude that was 67 on a plan F, so that became a great additional lead source. So it's a little bit of outside the box thinking when you're targeting. And sometimes you'll think of something outside the box and it'll sound like, oh, that's clever, I'll do that. And it doesn't work.
Right.
That just happens. But you got to try a lot of stuff.
Agreed.
So when you're looking at
someone's getting directions.
We're up here. Straight ahead on the left.
They're routing their path home already.
So when you when you got into under 60, you get straight into under 65 health.
Yeah, with one of the companies you were bashing yesterday.
You can say their
rightly
name.
So. It's okay.
Now people are going to look up your
LinkedIn
work history and know exactly who it is.
Right, exactly. That's fine. Look it up.
Well, I do run into those policies quite a bit. I'm sure you do.
I love when I run into them.
It's an easy thing to replace when you point at some holes.
For sure.
And they're great ones too because they often end up being those healthy and wealthy people.
Yeah, I won't get too specific, but if they got that plan, then I know they're healthy.
They're healthy and they probably ain't broke.
Right.
They couldn't afford it.
Right.
So,
exactly.
But how do you target the healthy and the wealthy? Because a lot of people in Medicare, you're targeting, blue collar, lower middle income, and even like dual eligible level.
Yeah, I mean it really comes down to self-employed people, right? Those are the individuals that are paying for their own health insurance. If they have a job that provides coverage, then likely not our client, right? So they're self-employed, and so then we kind of focus in on the occupations that typically you'll have higher income people, like realtors is a great niche, right? There's a lot of realtors that don't qualify for a subsidy. There's also a lot of realtors that may now, but not in the future, that need to be educated on the fact that they could still be penalized if they underestimate their income. And
which is very easy to do.
Any any self-employed individual that doesn't have a ceiling on their, I mean, and obviously no self-employed does, but if it's a commission-based self-employed role or, Medicare agents is a great market. I was actually talking to somebody yesterday who has one of those plans. He's a Medicare agent, and he has one of those plans that we were talking about a second
You gotta
ago.
fix that.
And so he's like,
Right.
man, he's like, I'll get your info and you can help me out. I'm like, dude, I'll get my info and I'll help you help yourself. Yeah, you might as well write it.
Yeah, shoot, the commission's a really nice discount.
It is. Yeah. I mean, if you're at a 20% comp, you're getting 20% off your
I
plan.
wrote our own health insurance. We're actually now getting to the size where we're looking at group.
Oh yeah.
But it's even a tough pill to swallow. It's like I don't even want to put myself in my own group because I'm like I've been on the same one for 5 years and I've kind of got a low locked in rate now. But
Your group's easy. You got a young enough, healthy enough group. You can do a self-funded plan. And
that's why I discriminate against old people.
Yeah, right. Same.
And
But
so
I do want to touch on that because you said yesterday there was some ACA discussion, and it's funny almost everybody I've talked to that's, so what do? You do Medicare, where you at? I said, mainly under 65 health, and they say, oh, so ACA. And I'm like, no, there's more there's a lot more out there than ACA, and there's even more out there than ACA, short-term medical, and indemnity. There's a lot of association health plans that were passed, right? These are ERISA qualified plans that were passed during the Trump administration that, good luck getting an association health plan passed through now. It'd take a literal act of Congress. But, during the Trump administration, there was a few that got through. And, I think it was Emily that said, if they are high net worth but they are unhealthy still, we will put them on ACA, and there's nothing wrong with that, but depending on the state. But if you're in Florida and you're high net worth and you're unhealthy, or let's not say unhealthy, but semi-unhealthy, not qualified for a short-term medical plan, there are still association health plans out there that still give you a PPO network, right? Like they still get nationwide coverage, cover pre-existing conditions, things like that. So I would relate it to Medicare, Medigap versus Med Advantage. It's not necessarily, thankfully this room is aware of the fact that one is not necessarily better than the other, when you look at it from a macro level, but to that client, one may be better than the other. And that's the same thing. If you're serving the under 65 market and you're only writing ACA, or vice versa, you're only writing short-term medical and indemnity products and whatever else, then you're just not you're not fully evolved as a broker, right? You've got to kind of learn the other avenues to best serve the consumer.
Too, with a lot of under 65 health agents, they'll get trained on one product. Well, oftentimes it's like the rarest product that would be the best product for anybody, and they're like pushing it on all kinds of people.
Well, dude, as a captive agent who only sold one product, I will say there's a lot of benefit to like scaling an agency where you're only selling one product, because it's
really
one pitch, right? So like I came into it with no knowledge of insurance and was a captive agent, could sell one, maybe two products, and sold that product really well because it was like repetitive, and then I got into the broker space and thought I could help everybody I talked to. They're like, oh, I've got diabetes and I take metformin, I take this, that, and the other, and I'm insulin. Oh, that's okay. I'll just list them down. And then I'm like going to look for a plan for this person. And I'm like, oh shoot, there's really nothing I can do for this person right now. And so it was actually my wife. We have like a sales report every week of all of the products that are sold and things. And she said, well, why don't you look at this? And this will kind of tell you what everyone else is selling. And I focused in on those one or two or three products. So you can't stop there, right? To your point, it's not a bad thing if you learn how to sell one or two products. If you're in the Medicare space and you learn how to sell Plan G really well, and you're kind of just focused on the people that best fit for that plan, there's nothing wrong with that, but you still need to evolve. You still need to like hone your craft and work at it and learn new avenues. So, it's been a journey from captive agents selling one or two products to now, individual under 65 group, like Medicare, life, annuities,
the association plan is something, I knew that there was like legislation making it possible. I didn't know that there were any that were out there. So it's must be drastically undereducated.
And yeah, it is very. I did a webinar, seminar, whatever, where I just overviewed the products, and the response has been, you guys were talking about YouTube. I mean, that video's got some decent traction, and it's got a lot of people reached out with questions and stuff. And so I do think it's undereducated, and I think that's why I'm trying to talk about it as much as I can, so that we do have solutions for anybody and everybody.
What's like a couple of associations to give an example?
So there's a lot of them are proprietary for because it's the association that was formed.
Company or
there's a company called Enroll First is the only is the one that I know is kind of like anybody could kind of access. But then there's there's companies that you can work with that have a proprietary product that is still commissionable, and some are guaranteed issues, some are they're very customizable, right? And it depends on whether they're self-funded or fully funded. Just like in the large group space, self-funded typically are a little bit more customizable and can exclude pre-existing conditions or can exclude certain things, whereas fully insured is not. And so there's only that we sell that we would recommend. There's probably only 3 or 4, so that's why it's not a real well-known thing. And the other thing is it's even new to me. Like, this is something that I've just kind of undertaken over the last year and learning about and trying to because going back to when you and I met, it was all right. Now I've got this under 65 stuff figured out. Boom, gonna grow in Medicare. And I can't tell you how many times we've had conversations like, all right, I'm finally gonna grow Medicare side. I'm really gonna make a push in that.
65 gets shook up with CARES Act,
right?
And bigger subsidies and these types of association plans, additional,
and starting to get the attention for under 65. So it's kind of like you doubled down. And
there's certainly riches and niches. Medicare is we love Medicare. It's a great spot to be, and I think, I guess I really think it's probably like a no-brainer for a Medicare agent to add some under 65, because we run into it like really easily, and it's probably a great thing for you to add Medicare, but just as a, hey, your husband's on a med supplement, rewrite the med supplement. Like to avoid it completely or refer it out. When you have the license, you're completely pretty much ready. I mean, even with ACA, the FFM cert is like unlimited passive attempts.
And once you do it once, you can do it the second time in 30 seconds. I mean, it's like a 5-minute deal.
Like, to not write some of that stuff doesn't really make any sense to me. And I may have said it at some point. This has been like people told me early on to avoid under 65 health. Thankfully, Galen was one that I did it anyway before even Galen said to do it, and I was doing it, but I wasn't making a lot of money at it. But my goal was, okay, it just seemed like if I help anyone that needs help, it's gonna somehow lead to more sales. That just seemed obvious.
Or more money.
Yeah, and so even if I didn't make commission on that product, because I was signing people up like for Ambetter before we could even get a contract, years and years ago, and finally Galen helped me cross sell and stuff to make some more money out of that. Showed some other options besides ACA, but then when we'd get into looking at short-term medical when it came up, things like that, I started talking to you about it, and we've done very well in that space, and it's a really good place to develop maybe quicker income that can even fuel your Medicare growth. Because I think Medicare is like long-term, like the most fluid, but health insurance under 65 has a renewal component, but it also has the potential to create some additional upfront cash at maybe a faster pace than Medicare.
And I wonder, Galen would probably be the best person to answer this, but I would, we've been talking about lifetime value the last 2 days. I wonder, what the lifetime value of a client you got at 61 and put on an ACA plan even for 4 years. Then, if you had the persistency in both the under 65 and Medicare, that creates a real juggernaut.
Health insurance, then you helped them with the Medicare transition. Now you've helped them through 2 things in that healthcare component. Like, I just imagine their loyalty to you is pretty high at that point. So, and that happens a ton with us. So we're very thankful that seems like our lifetime value is exceptionally high, in comparison to a lot of people's, primarily probably because of the way that we've marketed ourselves in a hyper local environment super saturated. But even that comes with its issues, because if you have like a one or two bad review ripple effect, it can be an issue. So we always have to, that's why it's so important to do what's best for the client. Even if you weren't a good person and that's why you're doing it, like, your business does better long term if you do the right thing. And
Yeah.
that's the good thing about pure capitalism, is bad businesses go away and die eventually, until private equity bails them out.
Can I just tell you what I think the I caught that. Somebody else did too. Can I just tell you what I think the biggest thing that a Medicare agent will struggle with in under 65? And you can tell me, I think you'll probably agree, but I was talking to somebody at lunch, the difference when you're selling Medicare is the promise of, hey, this is your maximum out of pocket. Like, after this, everything's covered. Your drugs are covered. You can see this doctor, this doctor, this doctor, or you're, on a PPO, you can see any doctor, whatever. And the level of coverage, you can sell the plan in a way that is, I guess, optimistic, or in a kind of a positive manner, right? But I always tell people selling under 65 that you've got to set a real expectation, and you've got to explain the good, the bad, and the ugly, and set a real expectation of, hey, listen, insurance sucks. I'm going to make it suck less, and I'm going to educate you on all your options. But, at the end of the day, if we've got 10 options that I didn't create, by the way, like, I didn't build these. These plans aren't my plans. This is the government plans. These are carriers' plans. And I'm just the guy that's going to help you find, the best one for your situation. But if I've got 10 plans available in your state and all 10 of them kind of suck, it doesn't really change the fact that we need to put something in place, right? So setting that expectation when you're coming from Medicare to selling under 65 is very real. And even with ACA,
probably is the worst part for it, especially a Med Sup agent, but even a Medicare Advantage agent, because like Medicare Advantage is probably better than the majority of under 65. Which on the opposite of this, I tell people with Medicare Advantage, like the people that are like anti-Medicare Advantage, I said, if I go on a Medicare Advantage plan, I'd be on one right now. Like, you're crazy. So if you're comparing you're basically finding, okay, I'm looking at Plan G, looking at Medicare Advantage. Those are the top two. So Medicare Advantage compared to a Plan G, okay, I can see you saying that the Plan G is better just because of the access to care and the ease of use for a lot of people, depending on the area. But when you're on the other side and under 65, I said that stuff too. It's so funny because we never really talked about that, but I knew you did the insurance sucks concept. But when I would talk to people on under 65, it wasn't pie in the sky. This is a great plan. I would say, here are the plans. That's why if you look at there's a video on there of me breaking down health insurance as I understood it 5 or 6 years ago. Outdated. I don't take those videos down, by the way. They get too much views.
Yeah, I don't either.
But I had one where I was comparing healthcare sharing ministry, short-term medical, ACA, and indemnity. And
might have been the one how I found you.
May have been. It was a really bad video.
Right.
I looked like a dork, and I'm on a whiteboard, like the crappiest. I think I found the whiteboard by a dumpster, and like nailed it to the wall, not the way you hang one. But it worked, and I used it for an ad, and it did really well on Facebook. But the breakdown and the concept was just saying, these are the 4 options. It's not one size fits all. None of them, in my opinion, are good.
Yeah. But
you have to have one to protect you from the majority of crazy scenarios.
Yep.
Like, it's very difficult. ACA may be the one that protects you from the most potential out-of-pocket in the crazy scenario, but it also can sometimes be wildly expensive with high out-of-pocket and a really limited network. So it's not like people are like, ACA is great. Okay, I've sat down with some people that was really hard to sell this ACA plan to. Even people that are like, I knew that's what they needed. Because I've sat down with people with cancer that didn't have health insurance, and you're like, well, you're going to have this HMO, and my doctor didn't accept it. It's all you can get that's going to pay for this. You're going to have to change your doctor. Your doctor may be a jerk for not taking it, because otherwise you have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars out of pocket. I've literally had that conversation with them. And at the end of it, when you break it down that way, they're like, okay, I will change my doctor. I'm not being a jerk to the doctor. I'm just saying, like, you're going to pay for chemotherapy, or you're going to change your doctor and get this plan. That's your options. It sucks, but that's just the way that market is.
Yeah. And when I'm not the biggest ACA salesperson, but we sell quite a bit of it still because there are people that are sick, and I mean we're marketing to healthy and wealthy, but if we come across somebody that's unhealthy, we don't turn them away. We used to just say, hey, we can't help you, and kind of move on. Literally, we would give the marketplace phone number and say, hey, call the marketplace. And some of my agents still do, right? Yeah. Just there's probably some ACA people that are like, just have them call me instead.
Yeah.
But the sale, right, is still a sale at the end of the day. And so if we're coming across it and it's paying $20 a month over, the next 12 months, it's still $240 a year I'm making on that client. And so we're going to write it, but so in other words, the overflow of not our target market, we're still helping. Yeah. Right. And so
sometimes you might get a family, one of them's not healthy. You have that one on ACA, and they're like, well, this is super expensive for my 3 kids. Can we put them on, short-term medical for this year and then see what happens? And we've seen that. Sometimes it's not a one plan for the whole family, so you can have
split family
different ways. It gets to be I think there's a lot more problem solving in Medicare. Most of the problem solving is on the drug plan or the drug side. That's why I always think it's kind of a jerk move to be like, only write med sup, because like, oh, you want your job to be really easy, got it. But with under 65, it's a ton of problem solving because there's so many more variables.
Well, Jagger just said it best too when he was talking about their service team, right? And he literally said, well, guys, we sell mainly or all med sup, and so there's less service work. Well, think about it. If you're all writing Medicare, right? So who's your most difficult client to deal with, right? It's not the one that has the most money and best health, right? That person never calls you, right? They might have never called you after you sign them up. But the person that does take a lot of drugs and does want their PDP reviewed every year because their drugs are changing or they're getting more drugs, whatever. And the same thing applies with that under 65 as well. I mean, our clients, for the most part, are lower maintenance, and so you can handle more, right? And that's what it's all about. I mean, if you reach a capacity and you don't want to bring in a service, I mean, there's a lot of individual producers that don't want to have a customer service team or a customer service rep or even an admin. They just want to freaking write business by themselves in their basement or attic, for that matter, or whatever they call it. Anyways, and
frog. Yeah, the finished room over garage.
There you go. But they just want to be a solo producer, and I mean, you said it yesterday, right? You've got to look at those activities, and some of them are still profitable, but what's the least profitable? Let's get rid of it, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, some people try to shed their least profitable activity before they shed their not profitable at all, like losing money activity.
Right. That's like not writing PDPs.
Yeah, like I don't make any money, but I ain't writing no PDP. I just think that's the goofiest statement of all. That's the theme of the conference. Like, I ain't got no money, but I don't write.
Well, I don't think we're going to hear it as much anymore.
I ain't nobody going to say it to me after this, I guess. They're going to be like, I'm not telling him I don't write PDP. Like, punch me in the face. No, I mean, when I started out, like, Jagger, some of these guys that have done this scale, like the way that they think about the systems and processes, it feels like they had a lot of that in mind in the beginning. I assure you they didn't, but I still feel like they had more in mind than I did, because my goal in the beginning was very scrappy.
Jagger for sure did. He went into it very calculated. He had
some ideas for sure. I'm sure it's changed over time and evolved, but when I went into it, it was like, I can't even remember where I heard this, but there's some people, I think it was at GrowthCon, somebody was talking about, there's some people that build a substantially, successful practice, relative to whatever, environment they're in, right? So I had built a good income the hard way by running through walls.
Right.
Basically, I'll help anybody with anything for any amount of money, anytime.
Running through walls and dogs.
Yeah, and dogs, yes. I'm a dog murderer. So running through, putting head down and just running through stuff,
Right.
figuring it out, working 14 hours a day, just obsessing over stuff. Thankfully, my wife stuck with me long enough to know that I'm,
Right.
worth it, I guess. But very, very committed to that, but without the refined processes and the thoughts of the big stuff. So I eventually had to add those people like Steven and Jeff and these guys that think that way, that are helping me, and Kelly and Mallory and these people that like help keep me reined in, because I'm running through. That's who I am.
Well,
These guys are smarter, but the point I'm making there though is you can do pretty well just running through walls. So if you don't understand like how I'm going to scale, you're like, oh, you look at Daniel Funkel's business, you're like, how do you do that? How do you start? Well, like if you tried to build that right now, like, if you don't have $100 million to spend, you're probably going to fail. But that's the way I see it. But there are definitely ways to build something to scale from the get-go. But in my opinion, the best way to overcome that hurdle is to go run through some damn walls and create revenue. And then when you have revenue, you can go hire the people that do things better than you to create the processes that allow you to scale.
I'm so glad you touched on that too, because I'm sitting here thinking that, you said when you started, you just kind of run through walls and whatever. When I started, when I officially started, right? Because the captive agency was like 7 years ago, and I was there for like a year and 9 months, and I was terminated. I built a really solid book and was terminated. Didn't get any renewal commissions. My whole book was just kind of snatched. And so when I started because I owed 60 grand in taxes, and it was October of 2017, and everybody knows that October is before the money making season, and it was out of pure necessity and to keep my soon-to-be wife around, because we had a wedding coming up in February. So yeah. I said, babe, I'm selling insurance until January, and then I'm getting into real estate because insurance is full of scumbags, right? So I did it out of pure necessity.
Real estate's full of scumbags,
it's all. Yeah. I mean, hey, listen.
All entrepreneur filled
for sure.
Finance, insurance, real estate.
Yep.
Scumbags.
Yep.
But we figured out a way to get all the good ones in this room.
Right. But that's the thing is I ran so hard, and I give so much credit to you, man, for sure, because like I ran really hard to build back a good income again, because I had just had to kind of a taste of what that lifestyle was like until it ended abruptly. And so I started over again, out of pure necessity. I could not go back. And so I spooled up really quickly, but I wouldn't call it scaling. I would just call it, running really, really, really hard, 1,000 miles an hour. Then you have kids, and then you have, whatever. You've got a family. You run into that problem head on for so long that you've got to change. You've got to make changes. And I'm thankful. I know everybody here is thankful for what you've done for the industry and what you provide through the content, because I wouldn't know that I need to scale if
Coach Burt and Matt Sapala both asked me what the average avatar of the audience here would be, right? And it's diverse, but I said probably the average person is somebody who has ran through walls, created a $200,000, $150,000, $300,000, $400,000 income, and now they feel like they're in this, they're doing well, but they're in this prison where they can't scale past it. And the number one thing, really, in my opinion, is you got to put the right people around you to begin to build the platform to get through that, because people are tremendous resource. And somehow I didn't even see that when I grabbed some people, but having the people and seeing it from within grow, like you can be the smartest guy out there, but you can't do that stuff without putting yourself around the right people. And it's not just around, I'm not saying like around the right people like me and you. That's great, like our networking and learning from one another, but it's also bringing the right people on your team. Like I've met some of your team members and people that are close to you, and you guys have a culture where you're all great friends. Right. So it doesn't really even feel like work when you're working towards a goal together. But a lot of those guys are not you. Their talent set is completely different, and it requires that to build past the running through walls phase. But the running through walls phase, for most people, I think is a necessity, because most of us are not as smart as Jagger.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with, like, it's been mentioned several times. I'm watching the conference both days, and I'm thinking, well, I was going to mention that. I was going to mention that. There's a lot of stuff that's been talked about, but you know, it's totally fine. Like and I struggle with it. That's why I struggled with it. That's why I know it's, you know, people feel that, but or people feel this, but it's totally fine to be what Bob said. Medicare Bob said, you know, he got paid 150 grand for his 10,000 hours of learning. Like, it's totally fine to be putting in the time learning, knowing that it's not your final destination, knowing that's not your what Brandon Clay was talking about, right? Like, where you want to be. Yeah. And so that's been a common theme of the conference too. And I know there's a lot of people here that, you know, get to hear from Jagger and Medicare Bob. I mean, I remember when you came down to Sarasota and we went up to see those guys, and I went through Jagger's office, and who's clearly going to have a lot lot coming in the near future. You threw him right under the bus. But.
Hey, Jagger, you just charge $25K.
Yes.
Give me a 10% commission.
But I
yeah.
I went there, and I thought, I thought, oh my gosh, man, I'm a bum. Like, I got to get to work, and and it's okay to be like, you should be inspired, but somebody else was saying it, like, don't compare yourself. Like, you're, you know, first of all, I'm in a different part of the industry.
It's when you see it and you can believe in it, then you can lose a little bit of that fear, you know, and maybe you probably has less fear than the normal guy anyway, but you can lose a little bit of that fear that it isn't possible when you see somebody else scale. The biggest difference is the people that you see with doing big stuff. They're just not afraid to put their money where their mouth is, you know, because it does require significant investment. Hiring people is never, it's always a drain of money immediately. But in the long run, you have to do it or you can't get past, you know, that level, every level. You know, it's never like you hire somebody and a week later they're making you money. That's ridiculous. You know?
Unless they're Steven, fact, right?
It may be 2 or 3 months. Yeah, every now and then you get he's not a human. He's a machine. He's a cyborg.
Yeah, smart one too.
So, but you know, yeah, most people, it's going to a lot of times it's 2 or 3 months. You know, but you know, some of these guys that refine their processes where they probably get them into a seat and they have them, you know, 2 or 3 weeks in starting to get better. But the ones that are there the longest end up being the most profitable because they get dialed in and they can close so much stuff. So those are huge assets. You're building, you know, quality culture. You ordered me a tweed jacket, and my wife's mad at you because you told me about it last night when you weren't supposed
I can't keep surprises to myself.
I'm not good at that either.
And I'll give credit to your team too. I asked a lot of them, like, hey, what should I, you know, what I want to do something for Justin, man. You got me here. You know, you give the opportunity to share the platform with you. It's just, it's special what you're doing. And so, you know, I want to hook you up and you look sharp in a nice new jacket. So
yeah, man, I like jackets, and you're gonna.
But I was so excited I couldn't keep it. Like, I had to tell you.
I'm not good at it either. You ask my wife. I'm terrible at secrets. If I buy a present for her and something like a month or a week away even, I'm just like.
Do you want to know? I always say, do you want me to tell you or not? And
what's the difference in today and that day anyway? Come on, let's just go ahead.
I always say, do you want me to tell you or not? And she says no, but I'm always hoping she's like, yeah, just tell me.
Yeah.
You know,
I enjoy certain people. I enjoy buying stuff for them way more than me. I get kind of like giddy about it, so that's why I can't hold it in. So maybe it's a common trait in the high Ds, like Coach Burt was talking about. So I feel like I'm a high D. And then I'm around Johnny, and that's a struggle for me.
Dude,
he's
killing it.
He's a super high D. So
he's killing it.
Well, dude, thank you so much for being here.
Man.
If people are looking to get an under 65 health, you know, call me, and anything you need to know, I'll text him. So I have this behind me, right?
Yeah.
No, this dude's a you know, innovator in that space, and it can be a great source for revenue to invest back into Medicare, because I'm definitely an all-in Medicare guy, but under 65 is not to be slept on.
Not at all.
And there's only a handful of people that I think are relevant in that, and you are as one of them. So
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here, brother.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.